Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. We hope you enjoy the show and find it very informative. Hey everybody, it's Shelley Hoffman, and I am here with our mayor, Dick Clarke. And I put in our descriptions, Mayor, we're approaching the end of February. We started these things kind of in end of March, beginning of April last year, I think. So it's been a year. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Again, I think I was mentioning before we went on the air that I wondered over the weekend whether I'd have anything because it was kind of slow going. And of course, I've got 2 pages full of notes, which will probably scare people away.
I'll stop watching now.
It was really, I mean, when you think about it, kind of a strange way to start the week. We had a fatal shooting. We had 2 big fires. And capped it off Tuesday morning with a bank robbery, of which I've got very little detail, but out at the Fulton Savings Bank. So, yeah, it's a little strange. Stuff like that doesn't happen around Baldwinsville too much, and we're fortunate that what we get to talk about most of the time is good stuff. But coming out of the one fire, which was at the Purpose Farm out on 370, and if people don't know what the Purpose Farm is, they have horses and pigs and goats and chickens, and somebody said they might have alpacas, and it's meant to offer children, I think from ages like 5 to 18, a bit of a sanctuary from time to time where they can go. Children dealing with abuse and trauma and neglect, living in a high-risk environment, they can go out and have a time with animals, and it's great therapy. And unfortunately, some of the animals are gone.
Well, and the animals too were they were rescued animals. Right. So it's not just for the kids. It's almost like kids who need that escape, but animals who need that love, right? And what was it? 20 animals, I think that didn't make it. Yeah. Did you see the post that Purpose Farm put out about Pete the Peacock? Have you ever met the peacock?
No, but I shared it because it was pretty cool because, again, for people who didn't know, he was getting blamed originally for starting the fire because he supposedly knocked over a heat lamp. Right. And it turns out Pete was a hero because the hawk got in the barn and was going after, I assume, the chickens and that type of thing. And the peacock came to their defense. And it's kind of hard. I don't picture a peacock being a, muscular hero type character. You don't see too many cartoon characters of peacocks, and but he apparently shagged the hawk out of there, but in the process the hawk hit the lamp. They must have cameras, and they were able to see it. So Pete has gone from looking like he might be a bit of a goat to being a big hero. So, and I'm sure Pete the peacock is a big fan of a lot of the kids that go out there. Peacocks are absolutely beautiful. And they're nice animals. And one of the fundraisers I know that's going on is because of a pig that was injured and is down at Cornell being treated. And it's like $500 a day. It's already up to $2,400 just since Monday with other, not just the daily stuff, but other treatments. And I said to my wife, "What's the name of this pig?" And she said, Chris P. Bacon. I said, "Now that's a great name."
That is amazing.
So everybody's pulling for Pete, and he's got, Cornell's got that great veterinary school, so he's getting good treatment. And so people are coming to the aid of the Purpose Farm, which, you and I certainly can see the benefit of what goes on out there all the time. And if you drive out 370, it's not too far out. It's down towards the river. After you go by where our DPW is, it's just around the Big Bend. You can see 2, 3, 4 barns down there, and they have all kinds of animals, and just a great idea. And and the other fire was devastating too to a family. Shelley had a great idea. If anybody has suggestions on stuff they need, get a hold of the volunteer center or somebody like that could, specific needs. Maybe they've lost clothes or, whatever. I mean, it's obviously going to take a while before the house is ready to live in with all the damage that was done, but we can certainly help people out, and we've seen it throughout the pandemic that Baldwinsville has just risen to the occasion. So I'm guessing that the people that live on West Sorrel Hill Road will see this good side of Beeville.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I know that people were dropping things off to them. I was in touch with one of the friends of one of the young ladies, and and it's great. People will come. We just need to know what the need is. That was kind of what happened with Baldwinsville Helping Baldwinsville. Is Pam was able to get out and ask people what are the needs, and then people met those needs. If we don't know what the needs are, it's tough to meet. So hopefully, once the family can wrap their mind around what happened, right? Because that has to be a shock in itself,
Sure.
and formulate what they need, then hopefully the community can once again come around and support them and help them get back realistically as much as on their feet as they can. So, but thanks for bringing that up, because that touched a little bit personal for me, just because I know one of the family members is a great kid. So,
good. Well, I'm sure Baldwinsville will respond. And if anybody has any questions, Shelley is always a good source to tell you who you can contact if you need help, or if you have help that you want to provide. We'll get you to the right place. Fittingly, I just discovered today, Jeff Rogers posted from Angry Garlic, today is Happy World Bartender Day.
I saw that. I want to go support our bartenders personally.
I think with the start of the week we've had, people may be using bartenders a little more than normal this week.
Yes.
And bartenders usually are great people, they're good listeners, and I've known some very good bartenders over the years, and toast your bartender and have a good day, enjoy it. Yes. Another big thing to be careful of. This is going to be a big year for cicadas.
For what?
Cicadas. They're about this long, and they're kind of ugly.
What did I say about when we have these conversations and bringing something that I would find disappointing or I wouldn't want to hear about?
Got to have a balance. So, but apparently, the cicadas they live underground, and this particular breed has been underground for 17 years. And late May and early June, they will emerge for a couple of weeks to mate and then go back underground, and we won't see them again. But they have a distinctive noise, a cicada hum. You can just hear a buzz, off in the trees where they are, and they're kind of. I remember as a kid, somebody stepping on one, and we're pretty gross to see when and they're very crunchy, So you may see some cicadas floating around. New York is one of the 17 states that has cicadas. So brace yourself. Go see a bartender. You'll quit worrying about cicadas.
Greg Humphrey is chiming in with, as villages and residents or employees and residents of the village, we should probably go to the bartenders now. So I think we have to end this discussion right now, Mayor, and get on out.
All right. This is a pretty big day, I think, for Central New York. You've heard me many times tell you how I think Ryan McMahon has done a terrific job during all of this pandemic. Our county, from what I've heard, has the best record as far as getting people vaccinated of any county in New York State. Our numbers are back down to, we haven't had a death since Sunday, which is, where we want to head. But he got asked by John Katko to address a Homeland Security conference amongst congressmen, and he's the only local leader. The other three are medical people, and they've asked him to come and talk about, the numbers, the impact on our community, on schools, on businesses, on the opioid crisis, and unfortunately on him. I don't know if you've read the stories or people have heard, but when you watch Ryan McMahon, you can tell when he has to relay that 4 or 5 people have passed away, and he reads their age, and he asks people to pray for their families, and that it takes a toll on him, and it has taken a physical toll on him. He's had problems with double vision, isn't able to drive a vehicle. Somebody has to drive him around. They were worried that he had done some permanent damage to one of his eyes, and they've done all kinds of checks for, for tumors and that, and they think it's stress related. And I can understand. I mean, he's been on the firing line, and when the vaccinations started, right away people started complaining. I can't get a hold of anybody. Well, the problem wasn't him. The problem was that we had been told we were getting X number of vaccines, and we got half of that, and so people had to be rescheduled, and so if you're a praying type, praying for the animals at the farm, praying for the family that lost so much in the fire, and Ryan McMahon could probably use a prayer too. I mean, he's always asking people to pray for those who are affected by the COVID, and he's been a trooper for us and a great spokesman. He's fought with the state and gotten them to back down on some restrictions. So I hope it goes well. It was supposed to be 9:30 this morning, but it wasn't on, like CNN or any of those things. But maybe somebody will air it later. And I'd love to see what he has to say. And if anybody wants to send Ryan a card just to let him know that you appreciate what he's done for us, I certainly plan on doing that. Some of the normal things that are going on, I mean, normal, more routine. Mike Lefenchek reminded us the other night that the house check program is still going on. So if you are going to be out of the town for a week, vacation, business, whatever, contact the police department and they'll do house checks, sort of on a staggered schedule. So if somebody's watching the house, they couldn't know when the police are coming. And they go around and check doors. And if there's lights on and then they're on in a different part of the house the next day, then they're going to check. And it's a great program. And then you get a letter at the end from the chief saying, we checked you, in a week, we were at your house 4 different times and everything seemed normal. Hope you had a great time, blah, blah, blah. So just contact the police department. Let me just keep going. Chuck McAuliffe at the DPW reminds people to not put their garbage cans in the road during the snowplow season because they either have to go around them and that leaves a big pile of snow around your garbage cans, or they end up hitting your garbage cans because there's nowhere for them to go but to hit them. And nobody likes having to go out and pick up garbage. So if you would please keep them back in your driveway or on top of a snowbank or something, they would appreciate that. And he also let me know that we're upgrading the pumps and stuff at the Dome Wells, which is out on 370, and that's begun. And we're going to replace the pumps. We'll have all new water pumps, and our water system will be, by the time we're done, will be pretty much totally upgraded, both Dome Wells and Canton Street wells. So nice to know that our water supply is going to be well taken care of. Codes, Greg Humphrey reminding people that they are responsible for cleaning their sidewalks in front of their house. You have 24 hours after a major storm to get them clean. But one thing to remember is you cannot put the snow in the street. It's very easy to go to the end of the driveway and just push all the snow out on the road. But I don't know if you've ever driven down a street and hit a chunk of snow like that unexpectedly. You think it's just light snow and it turns out it's chunks of ice and stuff. You hit that, it can send your car off in a dangerous spin. So you can't do that, and you can't push it on other people's property. There are snowplow people who will back up your driveway and then push it across the street into somebody else's yard. That's a no-no.
That's a no-no? What if we're trying to make a big sledding hill for the kids?
Yeah, Greg Humphrey at Codes and see if that's legal.
Okay.
So there is some things to be, we're still in snow season. Look outside today and it's pretty bright. It's not sunny, but it's bright and it's supposed to go up to 45. How about the crazy thing in Texas? I'm talking to my buddy who lives west and southwest of Dallas, Fort Worth area, not too far. And it was -1 the other day with wind chill of like minus 17. Was 75 degrees yesterday in his area, 80 in other parts of Texas. So they've gone a swing of 75 to 80 degrees. Man, would that mess up my sinuses? Woo! But unfortunately, a lot of damage was done in the short time it was cold.
Right.
A lot of animals. I saw a picture of somebody who had a car, kind of an SUV with a big storage area in the back, was full of sea turtles. They had taken the turtles from the shore and put them in the back of their car with the heat on, even though it was only going to be a short time, because I don't know how long turtles would last in that situation, but they wouldn't have lasted at minus 1 degree very long either. People were doing all kinds of things to try to rescue wildlife, and now it's back up to 75, 80 degrees. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Was interesting at our meeting the other night that some of the conversation was on what are we going to be able to do, as far as with the COVID. Maureen Butler, our clerk, pointed out that the representatives from the carp tournament had called her and said they had gotten the okay from the county to have the carp tournament in May. That's, if people don't know, they put what they call pegs of wood stake in the ground, and they spread them out there. There's quite a distance between pegs, and there's 2 or 3 fishermen in a team at each peg. Other than that, there wouldn't have to be a reason for them to cross paths. So I'm guessing the county thought that would be workable. But we're going to be talking to them about the possibility of when we could get people back in the senior center like we did in the fall, just for certain activities that we know we can keep safe. People have been inquiring about softball at Community Park, and I'm hoping that I hear from somebody pretty soon who would be interested in running a farmer's market. Whether somebody thinks it's a way to make a few bucks, or whether somebody says, I would love to run the farmer's market, so we have one. I'm not looking to make any money, but somebody needs to organize it. Used to be years ago, when the fire department was still where the square is now, there would be a time when the farmers would just come, open up the back of their pickup truck, and on the tailgate have baskets of tomatoes and whatever, and you just walked in, bought a few things. It wasn't as organized as we've had the last few years, and maybe we need to think about that for something for this year, where somebody would say, I'll just be responsible for, so people aren't standing there duking it out over where they're going to park their truck. I want at that spot. Somebody can say, no, this is your spot. This is your spot. You're 6 feet apart. Your trucks are. We'll keep you spread out. So if anybody is interested in having something to do with the farmer's market, please get a hold of me, and we'll see, what kind of deal we could work out. So I'm going to be calling the county on those 4 things, and I know that our Chuck Chow, who takes care of events on Paper Mill Island, he's interested. He's hoping that he can have some events out there this summer. So it gives you a little bit of hope. You try not to get too excited because there could be some roadblocks on some of that stuff, but at least we're talking about it. We're past the stage of like we can't do anything. And I'm guessing the restaurants can't wait till it gets up to be like 50 degrees so they can put some tables outside. Even at 50, some people will sit out and be happy to be able to enjoy the restaurants. And I, again, remind people, this is the middle of dining weeks for our local restaurants. Most of them are offering takeout for their specials. Some of them you have to eat in the buildings, but go online to BaldwinsvilleDiningWeeks.com. I believe it is. Yep. And Facebook also has a dining week, Baldwinsville Dining Weeks thing on Facebook. And, the menu items are just the whole spectrum of what you could, all kinds of desserts to different places. So give their local businesses a shot, and you'll enjoy it. It's a chance to feel like you're back to normal a little bit.
I want to mention for 3 things you just talked about for dining weeks. Obviously, like you said, the menus are there. I've done the Brick and Barrel. I'm going to Jasone's tonight to check out theirs. But I was talking to Amy, who is one of the owners of Brick and Barrel, and you had mentioned about going outside seating. So not only they plan to get outside seating, but herself and probably some of the other restaurants are also trying to figure out things that they could add to the element of outside seating, maybe some wine pairing or tasting, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see this spring when people can get back outside, if there's anything different that our local, because they're always thinking outside the box, right? Pizza Man, Angry Garlic, Tazone, Sal's. And then the other thing I just want to throw out, 'cause I just talked to Amy, she might do a Brick and Barrel might do a collection for food pantry this weekend. So look for some information. I'll put it on my page. Maybe you can share it out too, but for the veterans and stuff. So our community is always thinking of ways to help other organizations. So taking advantage of, the dining weeks and people coming in, and how else can we help the community with that? So I thought that was great. I wanted to throw that out there today.
My wife is on a campaign now. Get rid of 14 things a week. The house.
I hope you're not one of them. You're not one of them.
Hopefully, I'm holding on tight to things so my stuff doesn't go, or I don't go. But she has given some things away that she could sell, but the price she wouldn't get a lot for them. And she just some people are so happy to get things, and so other people might even think about in lieu of garage sales in the spring to start thinking about stuff to get rid of. And then you just have to come up with creative ways to get it out. I mean, we're not letting people in our house or in the garage to see things. So we either put it out on the porch, and all of a sudden we realize somebody's out there, and look, and it's gone. And you feel good that maybe it's something that we wouldn't have used, but somebody else, one man's junk is another person's treasure, type of thing. And so that's a thought for people. If you're trying to clean out a little bit, you may have accumulated a lot of stuff during the pandemic, and go on Facebook or whatever and post that you have things that you're trying to get rid of. And some people will be willing to buy some things. If you're selling a fancy fryer type thing that costs you $190 or something, you don't want to just away, but people might sell it at a very reasonable price, and it gets it out of your house. So that's a thought for people. And so there has been some discussion. I don't know if we discussed it, but somebody had seen somewhere where somebody was trying to bring up the idea of a community-wide garage sale in the spring. Every neighborhood seems to have one, and they're spread out all over the spring and into up to beginning of summer. And maybe, I know some communities do that, where you say this weekend is anybody in the village who wants to have a garage sale, this is the great time to do it, and people can just go up and down streets and cover the whole village. But again, we would have to do that within, whatever the safety protocol would be. And I don't know what that would be, but we would check with the police chief, and Mike is very good on that. And despite what people might guess ahead of time, Mike has been quite open-minded about things where, like with the carp tournament, he said, I see no problem with the carp tournament, the way they run it. It would be fine. And other people might think, geez, the police chief would be tough on that stuff. He wouldn't want everybody to just have things, but he understands what goes into it, and hats off to him and his department for keeping us safe through this whole thing. The senior center, they just keep booking. I mean, they're
the most active organization, community, whatever. Every time it seems like the senior center has something going on. I want to join the senior center, but I think I have about maybe 20 years before I actually can.
Well, but you can always contribute, I mean, and they have it used to be that Meals on Wheels had a fashion show every year. I think around Mother's Day. You could take part in that. They need people to model clothes, and it's really pretty cool. They said, I don't know if you've been in the senior center, but that whole big room gets set up, and they have a light lunch, and just a fun time for people to get out. And Donna Metz and Meals on Wheels run that, and Donna is so into helping people and making things fun for seniors, and some of the things that are going on over at the senior center. I think we've mentioned the senior fair in a bag drive, March 4th, 11 to 1. Almost every year, I think John DeFrancisco, when he was our senator, state senator, would be involved, and all the different service organizations and different insurance type places and so on would come and have a table set up so that if you were looking for maybe eyeglass, insurance, so you could get glasses or hearing aids or information on all kinds of stuff and how to get help for paying for your heat bill. And then there would be little, pocket things, 6 Band-Aids in a little package and that type of stuff. And the seniors kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of go around with a bag and, put a souvenir from each one in and get to talk to people. I'm guessing maybe they might have somebody talk about taxes, for people who need help filing taxes and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of a big deal. And obviously we didn't have it last year. And if we have it this year, it wouldn't be till the end of the summer probably. So to help people, and again, it's great to get them out of the house so that you're going to drive up and you'll get a bag and it'll be full of all the stuff you would have gotten if you went to the actual thing in the building. And they're still asking, like if you, I don't know if you do, but for your real estate, maybe you have like a magnet that people could put on a refrigerator to remind them of your phone number.
I actually do. And I want to reach out because I do have something that I could drop over there. And I'm sure a lot of other businesses do. We just like you're talking about the senior center, as far as businesses, there's a lot of things that we normally contribute to. Forget about the marketing piece of it, for ourselves, but there's things that we've always been involved in. We were talking about it at our company. You budget for it, right, every year. So, and that's how some companies have been able to give to the Christmas Bureau and different things because those marketing pieces didn't get used. So they've been getting to give back to the community aspect of it. So I keep meaning to throw out to some of the businesses that I know that would like to participate. So that's always a good reminder you brought that up again because I know there are some.
That's great, and I hope others do. And there's still time because it's March 4th, and then you'll just drive through, and they'll come over to your passenger side door, and hand in a bag. Or with the Valentine's Day, my wife and I went, and it was 2 bags and some cutout Valentines from St. Mary's School. The kids had made. So one of the bags had some candy and stuff, and another bag had it was like hand cream, for dry hands, which if you're washing your hands all the time like we're supposed to, your hands get pretty dry. And little things of tissues, and I can remember my mother's purse. I mean, as a little kid up until the time when she passed, she had the little plastic rain cap, and she always had a couple Band-Aids, and she had a little scissors, and so if you were out and something happened, if I only had, Mom would open the purse. And I know that my mother-in-law who lived with us, same kind of thing. She had, if suddenly a button popped off your shirt, she had a needle and a little bit of thread.
So for the record there, I don't have that stuff, but I make sure I'm friends with people who do.
You and me both. But it's one of those things that when you're young, you kind of laugh about it and think, but then as you get older, you realize there's nothing worse than getting stuck out. Like if you're at an event and your shirt is pulling apart because there's no button there, and everybody in the world's going to be walking around, covering it up. And somebody would say, "Come here, I've got a needle, and go in the other room and sew your button back on." And so those are the kind of things that will probably pop up in this bag, along with information about insurance and if you are looking for physical therapy or different, those kind of things will be available. So if you have questions about it, call the senior center, 638-4536, and get more information. But that's a nice little effort to get the seniors out of the house. And when we were there for Valentine's, there were about 8 people with masks on, with some were handing bags, others were just part of the group. And it was good to see. I hadn't seen Ed Barlow in quite a while. It was nice to see Ed. And he had to give me a hard time, which made me feel right at home. And so good for people to get out. Trying to see what else we got here.
I know you have the drive-through for St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. We actually there's two events for St. Patrick's Day. One is the drive-through on Tuesday the 16th. Wear green. They'll have something to give. I don't know if you're going to get some goodies or something from the people at the senior center. That's 2:00 on March 16th. Then on the 17th is the St. Patrick's Day Rotary dinner. And 120 spots that are gone.
Yes, instantly.
The deadline is March 10th. And so Ruth had said the other night that they were hoping, Rotary was hoping that maybe they could talk to the caterer and get a few more people taken care of. There's no promise of that, but they were trying. It just shows you people are really anxious, first of all, for a good meal, but just to be a part of something.
Doug Tosh, who's the president of Rotary, because I was on the Rotary meeting last night, he also is in real estate, and he said that as soon as they started advertising, it was like a hot house in the market. The phones were ringing off the hook, and people were signing up for it. So I don't know how well other people get that analogy, but to me, I was laughing super hard because I can completely appreciate that. He said that they were gone almost, as soon as they started marketing the dinner. So that's great.
So I would tell people if that's something that you were interested in and you were just figuring you had a lot of time because there would still be places available up through the 10th, I would call the senior center and ask if you can get on a list. And if they open up some more spots, it may be that this caterer is handling a lot of other senior centers or other events and just is strapped unless they, but it's early enough that hopefully maybe something could be done. So I don't want to give people false hope, but the Zoom stuff is still going good. We are going to see about maybe if in early April people can get back in the building for a couple of limited events, including the book club and the art group. Our memory lane group has stayed consistent at between 6, 7, 8 people. But the conversations have been amazing. Ruth Troy comes in about every other meeting now, and we just talk about people who we remember from our childhood made an impression on us, and the stuff that people get talking about and the fun we had. Yeah, the topic I came up with the other day, because I try to come up with something so that we have something to focus on, so we don't just sit there and look at each other. And I came up with stupid things you have done that maybe you didn't. I've never told them, really.
You should have told me that topic before the meeting. I might have hopped in on that one.
Well, people had some good ones. I mean, I confess, I told about before Linda and I were married, we were just going out, and my best friend growing up lived in Brooklyn. And so I said, I would really like you to meet Terry, and I'd like for Terry to meet you. And he was married and had he and his wife had adopted a child from Vietnam, a war baby. And so when we went down with the plan, the first thing we would do was go to the Bronx Zoo. And then from the Bronx Zoo, we would go to Brooklyn and spend a couple nights. It was kids' spring vacation. And so we get to the Bronx Zoo. I shut the door, and I realized as soon as it shuts that the keys are still in the ignition. And, I don't say I'd never do it, because obviously I did do it, but was the first time I'd ever done that. So now we're in the middle of New York City. The keys are visible to anybody that looks in the car, and it's raining, and it's thundering and lightning. And so I tell Linda and the 3 boys to go find some shelter somewhere. Go through a couple of buildings. I'm staying here with the vehicle. I'm not leaving my vehicle alone with the keys in it in New York City. And finally saw somebody that worked there and asked them if they could, get a hold of the police or somebody that would come. And eventually some guy came on a golf cart, and he had one of those long, what they call the Slim Jims, and he reached down in and popped it. But by then, of course, I had been soaked, and now it was, the sun had come back out, and I'm, like steaming. And I'm thoroughly embarrassed because everybody going by is looking at, why is this guy standing out in the rain? And But we had a nice time at the zoo, eventually at the zoo, and then we went to my friend's house, and they took real nice care of us. The kids, we had told the kids they could do one special thing. One of them wanted to go to the top of the Empire State Building. One wanted to go to Macy's, just to say they had been at Macy's, and the third one, Eddie, who wound up being a cop, wanted to get mugged on the subway.
I know Ed, and I can see that.
So we did go on the subway, and we just asked him to refrain from any outbursts that might get us all mugged. And fortunately, there was somebody on there with I don't know if it was a guitar or something, playing music, and had a hat on the floor, and people were throwing money. So they got to see a little bit of New York City life, and we wandered around New York City. Terry worked at Rockefeller Center in that building, so we got to see that, and just wandering, people just looking up as you're wandering the streets of New York. For kids who've lived in Baldwinsville all their life, basically, it was a nice trip, but it was pretty stupid that I locked the keys in the car. And so we went around the group, and everybody had something stupid like that, and that was pretty good. So that has worked out real well. And Zoom Bingo makes a return March 9th. Shelley, you may want to get involved. 2:00, March 9th. Okay. We'll get you a couple bingo cards if you want. Okay. And call the center if you're not sure how to get involved. You just have to have a Zoom sign on, and they'll give you a couple of cards. And you can, if you only have 2 cards, if you use pennies or something to cover the numbers. We did it the first day, and we used a pen, so now we threw away like 17, went right in the trash, instead of being smart and using coins or something to cover it. But it was a lot of fun. It was just different. It took up an hour, and people were laughing, and every time somebody won, everybody would clap, and it was kind of fun. I'm not a huge bingo guy, but again, it was different. It killed an hour on a day when I wasn't going to be doing anything. And so I hope that seniors have seen that there are things to do. If you want to be a part of the book club, if you would like, I don't know if they're doing any of the workout things. There was the big workout thing, and maybe somebody in the public knows more than I do about it, but there was a question about music and whether or not copyrighted music could be, if you used it on Facebook, that you have to have a license to use that music. It's kind of hard for me to believe, because I see a lot of sites that use music, and I can't believe they have a copyright to do it, because it costs money. But that would be nice if they could do some of the workout stuff, like the falls prevention, where it's the instructor would go through the workout, and they like to have music playing in the background because it makes it more upbeat. Yeah. So hopefully that's something that will return when we get the place opened up. Any questions at all for seniors on anything? Rides to doctors, vaccinations. You've seen more and more people that have gotten the vaccine. In the beginning, I saw where some people were having some reactions, on the second shot particularly, but not seeing as much of that now, and I don't know why. Maybe they're just not telling us. But for the most part, people think that's helping the numbers go down a little bit because there's less people to transmit it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not Dr. Fauci. I'm not in on all that kind of stuff. We do have a pretty good health department here in Onondaga County, and when I say pretty good, I mean very good. So if anybody has questions with a shot, with anything to do with the vaccine or the virus, please contact the health department. Your own doctor might have some pretty good answers for you. I'm sure they're getting info all the time. So we covered quite a range of things today. Hopefully people got some. I did want to mention to people, we're having a public hearing at our next board meeting regarding our 5-year community development plan. That's where you put a project in and you get money from the county that pays for 80% of the project. Any of the renovations that people have seen at the senior center, that was a community development, actually 2 or 3 community development projects over the course of about 4 years. Our plan this year, our number one item for 2021 is to put solar lighting and benches along the trail from Water Street all the way down to Community Park, so that in the summertime it starts to get dark at 7:30. Well, now if you've got lights, maybe it gives you till 8:30 to finish your walk, and you don't have to rush. You know, I mean, people don't want to get caught on a trail in the dark, and I understand that. And we would put some benches along the way so that people can stop and, you know, maybe take a sandwich down there and enjoy their lunch. You know, we do have quite an array of wildlife on the river, and great thing to spend time. Our current plan that's for this year, that's already been approved, is upgrading the playground equipment at Community Park. So we'll be in the process of signing the contract with the county now for that, and we'll take a look at ask Steve D'Arcangelo to come back for a little bit and let us know what he had planned when he for that. And
I'm sure Steve will. Is the swing still going to go in that the Lions were donating to the park? There was a swing for, I believe, for the wheelchair.
Yeah, I think that would probably be all included in that plan. And, you know, so hopefully that'll be something that when the weather breaks, you know, it's outside work, you know, if we can get a contractor that does that kind of stuff, I mean, or I'm not sure how it will work, whether we would just buy the stuff and we would install it, you know, our people would do the work. I don't know. But just because we haven't talked about it much lately with the weather and so on, we haven't been talking about outside playground stuff. So hopefully things will loosen up a little bit. We had to keep our restrooms closed all summer because the rule was they had to be cleaned like every hour or 2 hours, and that would have meant we would have had to hire somebody full-time or some agency full-time to be constantly circulating from park to park and clean restrooms. And it's just was the easiest thing was to keep them closed. But that's not convenient for people who, you know, particularly older people who go to a park and then so we're hoping, you know, that you know, I had talked about the possibility of getting hands-free equipment so that, you know, you put your hand under the water comes on, so that now you don't have faucets that people are touching and sharing. There is less and less emphasis on people getting sick from contact with hard surfaces, that it doesn't survive long. But, you know, that doesn't mean somebody who's very sick go in and you follow them in immediately and now you're touching stuff. So we may look into some of that and see if we can get a break on some of that kind of equipment because of the pandemic. And
yeah, but and we're obviously focused on COVID, but let's be honest. You talk to your doctor, people are not coming in as sick with the flu, with colds, so if you can do hands-free stuff and you can take advantage of the break because of the pandemic, I think the community would appreciate that, because you're right. Then just in general, it's less touching germs, bacteria. Take COVID out of the equation, and you still have all the other sicknesses that we deal with on a regular basis. So.
Yeah. So hopefully things will clear up enough that we can have our restrooms open. That's certainly something we're looking at. We have some sidewalk work to get done. We didn't get any done this past year because of the COVID. And when it was okay to do stuff, the guy who does our sidewalk work, who we have under contract, it was so buried with bigger contracts, you know, with stuff that was like new buildings that had to have sidewalks put in. You know, our case got sidewalks some of the places, some of them just need to be replaced. We do have paving plan this year. I think our plan is Downer Street and Tappan Street, you know, the whole run of those two streets. So, you know, some of that stuff hopefully will happen. We're getting better news and more encouraging news that financially, some of the places where we get aid, we will probably get most of what we expected to get. You know, there was some concern. So for people out there, you know, taxes, be prepared. March 1st, taxes will go out. We will have a new system in place for online paying of taxes. So check with our website. Check with our clerk if you prefer to go online and pay. We had a service, I believe, through Paychecks, This one goes through the county, and so it's a better system for us for this kind of thing. So that hopefully it's nice and smooth. We have a drop box. You can send it in the mail. We'll send you back a receipt if you want one. So just don't be surprised when the taxes start popping in about a week. It is that time.
Like tax bill, and we're talking. I'm like, do you know I got my tax bill? I had no idea it was coming.
Yeah. Right. Well, and people who are planning their money, particularly people who haven't lived here long. If you've lived here a while, you kind of know one tax comes the first of the year, another one comes now, and then the school taxes come later after the budget gets approved in May. You can kind of brace yourself and put money aside to pay your taxes, and so ours are coming. Hopefully, it won't be too painful for people. Again, I saw something the other day where somebody on Facebook said, "Yeah, the taxes just keep going up and up and up." We have not raised taxes. This is the 3rd year in a row we've had the same tax rate. I know that both Lysander and Van Buren were very proud of the fact that they did not raise the tax rate this year. Now, what happens when people get a little surprised is their assessment goes up. So that what they actually pay in taxes is more, but that's because somebody has decided their house is worth more.
Yeah.
But it's not fair to blame the people who have done the work on setting up our taxes, because we have worked very hard to keep the tax rate so there are no raises. And that's all I got, Joe.
Well, for not having anything on Monday to what transpired over the course of the week, it's crazy how much goes on in our little village. It's not a little village. I call it a little village because I love it, but it's a good sized community that we live in.
It's the biggest village in Onondaga County.
Is it?
I mean, and it has been for a few years. And I know people are getting concerned about a housing development out on Tappan Street and what's going to do to traffic. And, they are going to have public hearings or public meetings to discuss that stuff. People have got to if you are concerned, get answers. Don't just sit and stew and fret and later say, I knew this was going to happen, when maybe you let if enough people speak up, because again, Tappan Street is not a great street to add a lot more traffic to. And it's not assumed that people that would live at the outer Tappan would necessarily come down they might more likely go down to Downer Street, because that's where the grocery store is and the McDonald's and that type of stuff. So Downer Street may pick up more traffic too.
And there might be a Taco Bell, I heard, heading down that way too. I have some teenagers that, they're like, if I keep saying it better happen, or I might not want to go home one day if I have to go and say it isn't happening. But you're right, they might hit 690. I probably have seen the same things that you've seen on social media and conversations with it. And that's what I tell people, get involved, get the information, be a voice. And then, maybe the way that you want it to flow may happen. So, but I know somebody that has big dreams in about 5 years for that area. So I know she's hoping it doesn't. And since it's somebody that I care about, I'm wishing the best for her. But if a housing development that goes there, a dream she's had since she was a little girl goes out the window with it. So so we'll see what happens.
Well, it was always the argument. My sister posted something. There was always the argument if somebody said the people next door are going to build a house on that vacant lot, which your kids have used to play on for years. And somebody said, well, now where do the kids go to play? And it's like the old argument was, if you don't like what they're planning, you need to own it. Buy that property and leave it wild so your kids got a playground. The argument, always has been, it's their land. As long as they do it under the law, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. You can raise protests and make things uncomfortable for people, by enough people squawking, but it's difficult. And I don't know, we're getting a lot of development around the village and, in the village, and it's hard. People want to live here. That's the sad. It's the positive and the sad, and you real estate have got to know it. I talked to a fellow the other day. I'm keeping this going too long, I'm sure, but talking about his wife. He and his wife live in Radisson in a townhouse or a condo. I never know which ones are which, who owns when you own it. But they were looking for a ranch, But he said every time a ranch went on the market, a bidding war started. Last year or so. He said it's crazy. The prices go up 15-20% from what people are asking. So he said we just decided where we are, I don't have to worry about plowing snow or mowing grass, and it's if we want to go on vacation, we don't have to worry about things. So
there's just and we can end it, but there's two sides to it. People want to live here. People want they do want that one floor living, because before they were going year round down to Florida, Arizona. Now people do want to stay here for at least part of the year. And if you want to stay here for a part of the year and you're getting older, you're going to want that one floor living sometimes. And even young professionals that want to be here, they just want something small so that they can hop off and travel and, work from abroad or whatever. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say there's not enough places to live and then not let people come in and build. So it's that give and take. So I'll be curious what happens with that land, not even from a real estate standpoint, but from a person who lives in our community. I'll be curious what happens. So
it reminds me of the comment I made at a discussion with some seniors at Conifer who were thrilled that Aldi's had come to Baldwinsville, but weren't thrilled that with the traffic, it was hard to get out on the street to get to Aldi's. And I said, but you do realize that traffic on the street is why Aldi's came here. Because if there was no traffic on the street, Aldi's would not have put a store there. Right. So you have to kind of understand the give and take of all the way this all works. And that's when I tell people, turn right and then go left. And come
That's me at Dunkin' Donuts. At Dunkin' Donuts right there by Ace Hardware, Sal's. Yep. I don't turn left. I turn right. And then I turn Mechanic Street and I circle back around. So
you learned.
I did. All right, Mayor, always a pleasure. And I will look forward to talking to you next week.
Okay, Shelley.
Bye.
Bye-bye.